Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
When it comes to topics, HERTs and homeowners associations are two that are the gifts that keep on giving. And I asked myself, I said, Steve, you've done every possible story on each of those entities. There's no way that a homeowners association could do anything now that would top all the stuff that they've done in the past. And likewise with HERTs. And so today, it's not HERTs, it's a homeowners association. And you might go, but Steve, they've done it all. What else could they do? Well, from abcactionnews.com and sent in to me by probably, I'm being serious here, hundreds of people. HOA violations involving woman's brown grass led to her being arrested and jailed for 7 days. The allegation is that the woman's lawn wasn't green enough, and somehow that led to her being in jail for a week. So Adam Walser wrote this. It happened in Florida, in Hillsborough County, where a homeowner speaking out of, she was arrested and spent the week in jail for what started out as HOA violations involving her lawn. Story comes from a viewer in that area who was arrested following an escalating battle with her homeowners association over what started out as minor violations of her HOA's covenants, the covenants. She said, I think they have way too much power. I've never heard of anything like this in my life. So she also blames the poor condition of her grass on a drought that brought with it mandatory watering restrictions last year, and then she's got a big tree in her yard. So she says the grass in her yard isn't bright green like in television commercials, but she said it's been dry, and there were watering restrictions, and there's a big old tree that casts shade upon the yard. So she says that her yard is not the worst in the subdivision. If you drive around the neighborhood, you'll see there's plenty of yards not up to par. But she's the only homeowner to actually go to jail as a result of a fight with the HOA. So it started out with the management company of the HOA sending her notices. And it happened because her grass had started turning brown. So they started sending notes saying this is a violation of the covenants. And she said also that her mailbox was dirty, and they complained about her dirty mailbox. So she said, well, the mailbox gets mildew on it because it's in the shade from that big old tree. So she says that she can go out there with a brush and scrub the mailbox, which she said she did. But then she also said that she got a notice about having a commercial cargo van in her driveway, and other people in the neighborhood had those too. But she says she took care of that. So in case you're curious, in Florida, 40% of Floridians live in a homeowners association or a condo owners association. They're very, very similar in the control they have over you and what you do with your unit or your property. So you should know that in most states, when you buy property, the covenants that come with the homeowners association or the condo association are built into the deed. And so when you go to the closing, there should be something to put you on notice that you are going into a homeowner association. In Michigan, there's a specific disclosure. They make the seller give to the buyer that says, this is in a homeowner association. I mean, they have to tell you that. So a law professor who was asked about this says, this is a private contract that people choose to enter into, including what their lawn looks like, where they can park their cars, what color their houses can be sometimes, and the HOAs have the right to enforce this. So apparently, the HOA says that they requested mediation with this woman and that she failed to respond to that request. So they then filed a lawsuit against her in Hillsborough County Civil Court. The HOA alleged that she was violating these various rules regarding appearance, including the one about the lawn. Now, she represented herself in court, and she brought in a handwritten response to the lawsuit. And she says the response was rejected by the HOA and the judge. But the judge did give her time, but an ultimatum, and said that this is in a hearing. My grass had to be brought up to par. He said, you can get seed, you can do something, but you've got 30 days to get it corrected. So I said, fine. He said, if it's not done in 30 days, you're going to go to jail. Now, that does seem like a severe sanction for a violation of a homeowners association's rules, but she says that she corrected the violations. She got rid of the vehicle that she said was a problem. She cleaned her mailbox, and she bought seeds and watered her grass. But here's the problem. She missed her next court date. She says that she was not served properly to appear at a hearing in August. Said I was supposed to receive documentation, but nothing was sent to my house. And I reached out to the courthouse several times to try and find out when my court date was. The judge signed an order, however, holding her in contempt of court for failing to show up. He issued the warrant for her arrest at the request of the HOA's attorney. And so the law professor they talked to said, I think it's pretty rare in a civil case for someone to have a contempt order. Absolutely. Now, I've seen it threatened of people, and I think I've seen one or two examples where someone's held in contempt, but it's usually they're fined for it or something. You know, in other words, they got in trouble with the court, but they didn't get jailed for it. So the fact that the attorney for the HOA says, yes, jail her, when the attorney could have said, how about we get some costs because we showed up and she's not here, and how about when she does show up, you penalize her financially? Because remember, the HOA's own rules say that they can penalize you financially. So the woman was out driving around and she got pulled over by a sheriff's deputy after she picked up her 15-year-old daughter from cheerleading practice. And he asked me, can I get out of my car? When I got out, he said, did you know that you have a warrant for your arrest? She was then handcuffed and taken to jail. And at jail, she got more bad news. No bond. She had to be there for 7 days. So the 7 days was basically a sentence that she had to serve out. So to be incarcerated without bond is certainly an extreme measure, and it's pretty rare. Again, it says the attorney and law professor who they asked about this. And so I am a lawyer in Michigan. I would prefer to let someone else opine about Florida law, and this man is doing that. So the woman described the humiliation of being fingerprinted and being mugshotted. It makes me feel horrible. I work hard to buy this home for me and my kids in a better neighborhood and environment, and to be taken to jail and treated like that for brown grass at my own home, that's horrible. During her stay, she says she tried to avoid interactions with the hardened criminals that she saw in jail. And one funny exchange, a girl came over and asked me, what are you in for? And I told her it was for my grass, and she said, oh, they should make that stuff legal. Now, another attorney they spoke to about this, who specializes in dealing with HOAs, says you have an HOA who is quick to go after her and to use the full force they're entitled to. But the question is, have you ever heard of a case where someone had to go to jail? And the attorney says, well, the judge had the right to do it. I think perhaps there could be more lenient remedies. And remember, the point is you want to get someone to follow the rules and abide by the law. So meanwhile, the sister-in-law of the woman, who is a paralegal, helped her file a petition 6 days after she's incarcerated, requesting an emergency hearing. And I went to court and was shackled when she went to court. She said she's the only person in county civil court wearing a jail uniform. Her relatives sent pictures of the yard and other evidence to the judge, and a different judge, this is not the one who signed the arrest warrant, says they looked at everything and they let her go. Now, they did say it wasn't resodded. The whole yard needs to be resodded. And the judge said, not from those pictures. No, I want her released immediately. So the woman says that the HOA attorney wanted her to sit in jail and not come home. So the homeowner was released in the judge's order after the paperwork cleared the next day. So she did spend the full 7 days in jail despite that hearing. But they asked the HOA attorney for a comment and did not get one, but they got an email from the board of directors that says that homeowner received notices of violations. She disregarded them. Legal action was filed by the association after she failed to accept the offer to mediate as required before a lawsuit can be filed. After suit was filed and final judgment was entered against her, she showed up for the court hearing on July 11th. At the July 11th hearing, another court date was set by the judge for August 19th. She was instructed to comply with the requirements of the final judgment, but she failed to show up in court on August 19th. Her failure to abide by the court's instructions led to the arrest warrant being issued. That's fine and dandy. But the arrest warrant being issued, theoretically, is because she didn't show up for court. And the fact that it's like, no, you're going to spend 7 days in jail, then we'll discuss the contempt hearing, or then we'll discuss what's going on here, seems to me to be wrong. So ABC Action News did call and leave a business card at the HOA president's home and asked about getting some statements, but didn't hear anything. And so legal experts say there are lessons to be learned and understand that HOAs can be petty. But take them seriously. And you might want to consult an attorney. But the one thing they tell you, of course, is to never disregard court notices and court dates. She says she was not told of the date, but I can tell you, practicing law for 34 years in the state of Michigan, anytime I'm in court, the court gives me a date. It says, Mr. Lehto, your case will be brought back up again, September 9th. I always ask, will a notice be sent? And 99.9% of the time the court says, yes, notices will be sent. So if notices were not sent in this case, the fact that she spent time in jail for missing a court date, I have nothing but sympathy for her, because courts should know that people who are not familiar with the system might not know what notices get sent and when and to whom and where and so on. And so she said she's waiting for a notice. And it sounds perfectly reasonable to me. So if a notice doesn't get sent, I have called a court and said, were notices sent? And I've had a clerk say, no, they weren't. It was an oversight. And I've had clerks say, yes, they were. Aren't you at this address anymore? And the craziest thing, I'll just give you a wild example, is that I've moved my office several times in 34 years. And I've had it before where I moved my office, sent changes of address to everybody, and the Michigan State Bar, which issues the official address book, the Michigan Bar Journal, to lawyers and courts of the addresses of all the important things, including attorneys and courts. I've sent my updated address to them, and they published it. And 3 years later, had a court someplace send something to my old address. And so I called the court and said, I'm curious, why did you send it to my old address? They said, that's the address we have on file. I said, look at my case caption, look at all my pleadings, look at everything, look at the Bar Journal. And the woman sheepishly said, well, we haven't updated our system yet. I mean, these things happen. Should I spend a week in jail because I missed something? So the crazy part here is that this is a civil action. Understand there are criminal actions and there are civil actions. Civil actions are two people, in essence, suing each other. Criminal action is the state or the city or some government entity prosecuting you for something. Now, it's true, the state can sue you, okay? But generally speaking, lawsuits are between people or entities and criminal actions. So she's in civil court because it's an HOA that's initiated the action against her. That's a lawsuit. It's a civil action. Generally speaking, civil actions ask for money damages or equitable relief where the court asks somebody to order someone to do something or to not do something. And here they wanted her ordered to have her grass fixed, okay? That's a civil order. And generally speaking, if you violate civil orders or you lose in civil court, it involves money. And so a judge very well could have and probably should have. Again, I don't want to be a judge, but if I was a judge, I would have said, here's the deal. You've got 30 days to do something about your grass. I need to see some improvement in your grass because I understand grass doesn't just heal overnight. 30 days from now, come back in with photographs and show me the condition of your grass. If I see improvement, I'm going to let you go and just keep it improving. And they can come back at any time and say, Your Honor, the grass is right back where it was. And then we have a problem. But I'd also look at both sides and go, really? You guys are in here about grass? Come on. Get a life. Both of you. But if somebody came back in 30 days later, 60 days later, and there was no change, I would turn to the person from the HOA and say, what does your rule book, your covenants say that you are allowed to do to somebody who's violating your rules? And they're going to say we're allowed to issue daily penalties. Of how much? $50. Okay, just to let you know, I'm giving you 30 more days. And on day 31, I want you in your photographs proving that you're doing something about your grass. And if you aren't, you're going to get hit with $50 a day until you do. And that's monetary damages. And the idea of throwing somebody in jail for 7 days as to what started with an HOA argument over the color of her grass does sound absurd. But I assure you that within a week or two, people are going to send me another story and say, Steve, check this out. An HOA gone crazy. With a 50-50 chance it's in Florida. So that's from abcactionnews.com out of Florida. Adam Walser wrote that everyone send it to me. HOA violations involving woman's brown grass led to her being arrested and jailed for 7 days. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part.